There are plenty of TV shows you can choose from if you're bored, but sometimes you need a little more help leaving reality behind. That's where fantasy comes in. Instead of watching fictional characters deal with mundane, everyday issues, why not watch them slay dragons, fight monsters, save the distressed damsel, and make out? Doesn't that sound better? Not to mention some of the fantasy series offers such wholesome stories that makes the experience all the better. Let's have a look at 10 of the best fantasy shows ever. Starting us off at number 8, Supernatural. Eric Kripke had originally planned to end his show, Supernatural, after just 5 seasons, but his plans didn't work out the way he wanted, and instead the show ended up with 15 seasons. Supernatural focuses on 2 brothers, Sam and Dean Winchester, played by Jared Padalecki and Jensen Ackles. The 2 are pulled into the world of saving people, hunting things, the family business. As Dean put it so perfectly, the longest-running fantasy series in television history has a huge following, mainly because it's so fun. The show will introduce you to monsters you didn't know existed and follow the brothers on every adventure as they search for the yellow-eyed demon that was responsible for killing their mother. You'll also meet Bobby, father figure to the boys, who will instantly become your favorite as he tries to help the he can't help but love. Be warned, the show doesn't hold back when it comes to gore and horror, and is not for the faint-hearted. Up next at number 7, House of the Dragon. House of the Dragon is set 200 years before the events in Game of Thrones. If you're wondering why you should care about the prequel series, it's because the show is very good. It doesn't mimic its predecessor in any way, except that it's obviously set in the same universe. House of the Dragon focuses on the Targaryen family, who at the time were rulers of Westeros. The show has all the elements that made you love King's Landing in the first series. There are dragons, beautiful sceneries, gorgeous costumes, a whole lot of gore, and let's not forget deceit, lies, and conflicts galore. While many characters play an important part in the show, the highlight of the series are the 2 female leads, Princess Rhaenyra Targaryen and Queen Alicent Hightower. The casting of the series alone proves just how much work was put into the show. In short, it's a delight, and better yet, Season 2 is on its way. Coming at number 6, The Vampire Diaries and the originals. When The Vampire Diaries began airing on the CW, it took the whole world by storm. Vampires were all the rage, and good-looking vampires were even more so. Brothers Stefan and Damon Salvatore arrive in Mystic Falls, where they both happen to fall for Elena Gilbert. Yeah, there's a love triangle. Turns out Damon and Stefan are vampires, and they both loved a female vampire named Catherine, who, by the way, looks exactly like Elena. And you're not prepared for this, but both brothers were in a love triangle with her as well. What more did you expect from a teenage drama, if not romance? Still, don't think the show won't grasp you from the very first scene. There's a reason why its spin-off was just as successful. That allows us to segue right into the originals. The main character of the spin-off is Klaus, a werewolf-vampire hybrid. He was first introduced to the viewers in the Vampire Diaries series, along with the rest of his family members. In this series, Klaus investigates allegations of a plot against him and teams up with his siblings and friend to ally with the witches and retake their city. If you need vampire content, this is where you should start. Now at number 5, Once Upon a Time. This suggestion is for those who don't need horror to get you to feel something. As the name suggests, Once Upon a Time is one never-ending fairy story that is interwoven with all the fairy stories you've ever heard, plus some you haven't. If you love fairy tales, princesses, evil witches, and curses, this show is the one for you. The fascinating series explores what transpires when the worlds of fairy tale stories and everyday life collide. Emma Swan, a mom who had given up her son years ago, is the lead of the show. Well, her son shows up to tell her that he is sure that she's Snow White and Prince Charming's daughter, who was sent away by the evil queen. And what has the villain done? Well, she's cast a spell on the little town by the name of Storybrooke and made everyone forget who they were. Sounds cool, right? That's because it really is. Once you press play, you'll be hooked for all 7 seasons. At number 4, Stranger Things. Everyone seems to be watching the Netflix original series Stranger Things, and it makes sense given that it has all the elements necessary to create a perfect fantasy show. With elements of sci-fi perfectly integrated with it, the series introduces you to a seemingly ordinary group of young friends, until one of their friends, Will, disappears. That's when the trouble starts in Hawkins. While the rest of the boys begin to search for their missing friend, they happen upon Eleven, more affectionately known as Elle. The young girl, who has telekinetic powers, has escaped a research facility and finds refuge with the group. The show is mysterious, and its most exciting element is the Upside Down. an alternate dimension that exists in parallel to their own world, and that's where the monster lives. This gripping thriller will introduce you to some of the best characters on TV, so if you haven't watched the show yet, you should do it now before the final season is released and the entire mystery is spoiled for you on the internet. Coming up at number 3. Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Sarah Michelle Gellar, aka Buffy, led the TV show at a time when there were very few female leads. And boy, did she not disappoint! The student who was a vampire slayer in secret is easily one of the most iconic characters today. Not only was she dressed perfectly for every challenge, but was also fierce as any male action hero. Buffy is chosen by fate to fight monsters such as vampires, demons, and other paranormal forces. You'll go along on her journey as she tries to balance being a normal student and dealing with her destiny. Plus, like other tortured heroes, she doesn't push help away but instead surrounds herself with a watcher and loyal friends who help her as best as they can. It would be an understatement to suggest that Buffy the Vampire Slayer had an impact on the entertainment business. Only sci-fi series like Star Wars and Star Trek, as well as DC Comics and Marvel Comics, can rival its contribution to geek culture. So what are you waiting for? Now at number 2, Avatar: The Last Airbender. No, we're not talking about M. Night Shyamalan's awful 2010 The Last Airbender movie. We're referring to the animated TV show Avatar: The Last Airbender, which is a masterpiece. The 2005 show isn't just commercially and critically successful, but is considered one of the best shows ever. The show follows Aang, an airbender who emerges from a block of ice 100 years after he was assumed to have disappeared. During the years he was away, a 100-year war broke out in the world that was started by the Fire Nation. The show introduces you to some of the coolest powers one can have, known as bending. Benders can manipulate earth, air, fire, and water, while many are also trained in martial arts. The story, the action scenes, and the antagonists are some of the best on TV, and why the show has spawned a movie, video games, and a live-action series that is yet to be released. Plus, when you're done with it, you can hop onto The Legend of Korra, which follows the new avatar from the Water Tribe. And finally, the number 1 spot goes to Game of Thrones. Do you remember the days when all anyone could talk about was Game of Thrones? Well, there was a reason for that. If you somehow managed to evade the pull of the series, we're here to try to reel you in. The series was based on the novels by George R.R. Martin, but did much more than just create scenes from those words. It's why the show gained critical acclaim from its very first season. HBO struck gold when they took a chance on the world of Westeros and the Starks who introduced the world to viewers. The series adaptation not only stays true to the original, but it also enhances the character development of the numerous characters we met during the seasons. Just as the fantasy film industry has never been the same since the release of The Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones did the same for television. We will advise you not to get too attached to any characters in the show though, because the writers have no qualms when it comes to killing them. This expertly crafted story still has much to offer with elements of drama, action, romance, comedy, and of course, fantasy. You don't know what you're missing unless you've seen a Game of Thrones episode. Give it a try and we're sure you won't be disappointed. Which fantasy TV series is your favorite? Is there anything we've left out on the list? Let us know in the comments. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for similar content, and until next time.